So in talking about Hannibal's style and how we are telling the epic television story is quite different from the other movies.
We were wanting to have a new approach to Hannibal, not one that was necessarily established in the public's mind that's already been seen through previous incarnations of the subject matter.
Obviously, in 2 of 3, we have He's Behind Bars. And in the third one, Hannibal, we had made a deal with Gucci, so they were supplying the suits, and we had other suits from several other designers. But never did we have a design for Hannibal Lecter, handmade suits.
Particularly because of Mads, who was our lead for Hannibal. It was not hard to go in a certain direction with him because pretty much anything you do with him would look good. He would make it work.
Mads, his physique, just wears them so well. Best dressed man, I think, on earth.
Every time I would see Mads dressed, it would always be like looking at a Christmas present or something like that, because what he added to the clothing, it was like a small bit of magic every time. He just brought those clothes to life that were just formerly sitting on a hanger.
I think every single suit, tie, shirt, socks, shoes that Hannibal Lecter wears is what Brian Fuller would like to wear.
Brian has an exceptionally beautiful eye for elegant pieces, whether it's furniture or art or what have you. There's an aesthetic with him that is exquisite. So I'm not really sure which came first. It's a chicken or the egg question.
Hannibal style-wise, for me, I felt that he had to be as distinct as his legacy, and as somebody who loves a good plaid suit, I wanted to see him in waistcoats and matching jacket and trousers, and to have a fantastic silhouette.
We definitely wanted him to have some kind of a European heritage, undefined, and very sort of classically refined, elegant, intelligent, gourmet, total Renaissance man, basically.
And we've seen him in 2 seasons now, immaculately dressed, and I think that is because Christopher Hargaton comes in and feels the same way about the character as I do. He wants to have as many varieties of plaid suits as we can get our hands on, but he also wants to keep them distinct in their way, and he color coordinates to scripts and to tones to what Hannibal is wearing.
I just started playing around with fabrics and silhouettes and textures, and eventually it sort of gave birth to itself.
And we spend the money on the quality of the fabrics, the cashmere, hardly a cashmere blend, a cashmere, cashmere suits.
Hello, Frederick. Oh my God.
The clear suit came from the script. I knew that I wanted Hannibal Lecter to look as amazing as he does in his office when he's murdering somebody, but he can't realistically do that because he would get blood all over his nice suits.
His kill suit, we call it. Because the first time you saw it, you know he had to be covered up. How does he never leave any evidence behind? So he needed something.
So to give him this clear plastic suit that was, a little nod to Dr. No in a way, I think that was probably kicking around my head when I was writing it, but it felt like it was a way to give us a window into who he is outside with the clear, dangerous transparency of that protective shell.
But when you see it appear again and again, always over a 3-piece suit, that's outrageous.
The actual suit, when things happen quickly like that, you have to kind of take an expedient route to getting the thing done. And I think what I did was I bought some kind of a plastic utility suit. I don't know what it was. Tried it on mess, pinned it, and then revamped the style a little bit with the stand collar and that type of thing, and also the different type of plastic to give it some kind of allure. And I know in one episode where he's climbing the silo and there's the wheat field behind, the way they shot that thing made me very happy.
It plasticizes a bit his character. It's almost like the man who fell to earth, the way Mads plays it. So it's a character.
Not everybody can pull off that plastic suit.
Well, he is in a category unto himself. I find that all the characters in the show are very distinct. Unlike other projects I've worked on in the past, there doesn't seem to be a lot of overlap between the women or between the male characters.
I love working with Christopher because he's patient and funny, but has such a great eye.
Christopher has a particularly interesting eye for fabrics and textures and what the weight of something that you wear conveys.
I trust him implicitly, but I also love the fact that he wants to hear what you think, and he will take the time to hone down.
Part of what we've chosen to wear, for instance, with Chilton this season, because we were in double-breasted suits the first season, which I hate. They make me feel like a skis ball, and that's why he said, well, then you should wear it. And part of the choice this season was to move away from that a little bit, and we ended up in these blazers that every time I'd put something on, I'm like, Brian's gonna love this, because they were very much the kind of thing Brian would wear.
What was interesting to me in this season was that switch when I always thought of it as a onesie, the prison suit.
I'd be lying if I said it didn't make things easier because, and in a funny way, Hugh was, when we started to dress him again in clothes, he said that in a way, he kind of missed the prison uniform because it's almost reassuring to go to work and just know what you're putting on every day instead of having to think about, what would be appropriate.
And then kind of gets groomed, essentially, and emerges in Hannibal's office saying, I'd like to resume my therapy. And for me, the pitfall there was not to be just a mini Hannibal, to be like, the bad version of that scene was to show up in a three-piece suit, And again, Chris, through a few conversations, we honed it out, and, he helped me feel that we could show that little shift without being too on the nose about it.
His character did not have a complicated wardrobe. I think actors can get bored, and initially when we started out, I think he foresaw himself wearing probably one or two things constantly throughout the entire season, but it's my experience that people, after the third week of wearing the same thing, really need to mix it up a little bit. And the way you accomplish that with someone like Will is you just have very similar looking things. So there is some variation going on and it doesn't become boring. Also for the viewer on a subliminal level, it can be kind of monotonous to keep seeing exactly the same thing over and over again.
Not to put too fine a point on it, I'm basically picky when it comes to costumes. It takes me a long time of casting things off before I kind of hone in on something, and particularly with a character like Will, there's so many pitfalls, right? He shouldn't be, I don't want him to be like a professor, I don't want him to look like just a schlubby guy. There's a lot of pitfalls along the way. And Chris is great at providing focus to your slightly hazy thoughts. You've got something that you want to achieve, but you can't quite get to it, and he shows you a few options. You're like, yeah, that's what I meant.
I appreciate actors who are into their character and getting it right, and I can't say there's anybody better than Hugh to work with on that level. So I don't mind if people want to dig deeper. That's what I'm there for.
I've always admired teachers molding impressionable young minds, but you can only learn so much and live.
No one likes a know-it-all, Freddie.
The starting base with these two is really great because they're actually very easy women to dress. They're also very open to pretty much any kind of experimentation.
Well, I know it was very important to Brian that Alana had patterns, prints, colors that she stood out in this world of darkness.
It's not often in film or television that I have had the opportunity to go nuts with graphic prints. I like graphic designs and I love color, but it's usually kept to a certain minimum, whereas with Alana, Brian Fuller really wanted her to be in these rather exuberant, expressive prints. He just really liked them on her.
So every time we're trying something on and it's lacking a little bit of pop, we know that Brian's not going to approve it.
So the key to her was keeping her silhouette complementary to her nice figure, and also trying to apply the prints to the proper context, because different scenes emotively have different significance. So you don't want her to be wearing something super bold if she's, weeping or something like that.
So I think it's really important for her to keep her femininity without losing her strength.
One of the great things about the show is the attention to detail, and every single piece is chosen for a reason. Nothing's just you know, done for convenience sake.
Well, Beverly's costuming, I mean, the three musketeers, as we call them, that worked in the lab, their costuming was probably the simplest of all of the characters on the show.
She's either in the lab or out in the field, so, you know, I probably had a dozen pairs of the same black slacks.
Her silhouette was close and tight. She wore color, but, you know, often the pants or trousers would be dark and very, you know, nice fit.
Yeah, tell Sandra to give me a call, will you? Thank you.
Freddy's outfits are to die for. How was my funeral? When we first met back in season 1 with Chris and Brian, we had talked about the idea of armor so that her costume and her hair, and actually her makeup is quite subdued, but her hair and her clothes are very much a armor with which she combats the world, essentially.
Lara Jean, I have to say, the Freddy character is just so, to me, she's almost like a graphic comic character.
She really puts on an outward appearance to hide kind of what's going on inside.
With her, I had a lot of fun. I would always think thematically in terms of Freddy.
There's one outfit when she interviews Will at her hotel in episode 10, which actually, you don't really get a full look at it, but it's actually quite subdued outfit. She's in just black pants, which upon inspection do have a reptile print in them, but they are plain black, and I think a burgundy top and a blue top over top of that, very, very subdued, and that kind of shows her at her most comfortable. And I think Chris does a good job of reflecting that, because in that particular scene, I also admit to still caring about Abigail and essentially being out for justice over anything else. Do you really think Dr. Chilton killed Abigail Hobbs? I don't. Even if I let this story go, I will never let that go.
So she was often thematic, and you could really play with her, and people seemed to encourage it. So I was always looking for those possibilities.
It's a back and forth, and it's a lovely collaboration. He's very good, but ultimately there's nothing he brings in that I don't like. He's really good.
The way that we are dressed and carry ourselves tells so much about the character. Because for me, from the second you put the shoes on all the way up to the shirt and tie that you're wearing, that tells you what kind of a person it is.
And I'm very excited about what Christopher will do with Hannibal in season 3 now that he is a fugitive and he is wild and crazy.
Overall, the production, the vision of the production comes from Brian. He was one of the best people I've worked with as far as a visionary for a show, because he never had any doubt in or hesitation for 1 minute about anything, if he liked it or didn't like it.
And that's Brian Fuller. I mean, that's why I loved him from the beginning, because he wanted to make something that he would sit down and watch and appreciate. So you know you're getting really a special attention to quality and differentness.